Welcome to the Retreat Radio, where we go beyond temporary fixes and surface-level symptom management. Here, we dig into the real root causes behind your symptoms so that you can understand your body, advocate for your health, and ask the right questions. I'm Heather Witt, physician assistant and owner of the Retreat Wellness and Aesthetics. This podcast sits at the intersection of aesthetics, longevity, and functional medicine, and you'll get information without the sugarcoating, the trends, or the nonsense fluff. Let's get into it. Hello, everybody. My name is Heather, and welcome back to the Retreat Radio. Recently, I came across an ad on my social media for a new wellness product, and I almost lost my damn mind. And not because I'm against innovation or convenience. I love when patients want to understand their health, and I love when people want to access information. But this ad hit a huge nerve because it represents a much bigger trend that I've been seeing in the wellness industry over the past year and a half, I would say, and overall in the aesthetic industry in like probably the last 2 years. There's companies popping up left and right, and they've got these beautifully packaged products and services. They look affordable, they look modern and chic and accessible. They empower patients to feel like, oh, I'm taking control of my health. But when you actually understand this industry and you start really digging into what these people are offering, you realize that a lot of these companies are not really reinventing anything here. But what they're actually doing is they're stripping it down, they're cutting corners, and then they're just wrapping it up in really, really good targeted marketing. And this is where my problem is. This is the problem I'm having with it. Patients are seeing these ads and they're immediately comparing them to real medical care that they can get either from their primary care physician or what they can get from going into an established wellness clinic. They see celebrity endorsements and influencer endorsements, and they then treat this like it's a medical validation. They think, well, why would I pay more to go through my provider when this looks easier? I can do it all online. It's cheaper. And that funny couple that I see on TikTok that I just love to watch, well, they're using it and they look good. So I must want to use it. They're being trained to compare these kind of headline prices and ideas to real world healthcare instead of asking the questions of what's actually included in what this company is trying to market to them. So I had to jump on this because it's just been eating away at me every time I see these things popping up left and right. So today, I want to go over the example that I recently found. I jumped on this. I did some research on it so that I could bring it to you and we could dive deeper into this. So we're going to go over an at-home lab testing company that I came across. And probably just because I watched it once, now it's like in my algorithm. But now I'm just seeing every wannabe influencer on TikTok talking about it. And I've even started to see aesthetic providers talk about it. And it's funny because the aesthetic providers who are talking about it and how this may be so awesome for their patients, they're not even offering wellness in their clinic. So again, they don't really know what all goes into this. And so I just feel like this is going to spread like wildfire without people actually understanding what these companies are actually offering. So not only do I want to go over this specific company as an example, but I also want to dive deeper into this bigger issue of wellness marketing, celebrity and influencer endorsements, this low headline pricing, this new trend of startup healthcare, and really how this is polluting our industry and how we can kind of stop this and make a change. So let's jump right in. What really sparked this conversation, and I'm not going to go into details on the company because I've seen multiple ones since this came out, and I don't want to call anybody out specifically, but what we're talking about here is a company that does direct-to-consumer at-home blood testing, and it's in a subscription model, and it uses small blood samples that you collect yourself at home by sticking this device on your arm, and it withdraws a tiny little bit of blood, and then you send this in. They market it as that it's a biomarker test that includes 25 markers. So it includes a lot of things that we run at the office, like cholesterol, ApoB, triglycerides, CRP, your iron, vitamin D, B12, so on and so forth. And it even says that it can do hormones. So, all of this can be done for the amazing price of $63 a month for your first month, and then an ongoing price of $79 a month. So, this is something that they will send to you every 30 days, and you will do this every 30 days. From a consumer standpoint, this offer sounds compelling. I'm going to collect this tiny little blood sample at home. They don't have to stick a needle in my vein. It's this little device that goes on my arm that all these influencers are saying is completely painless. I'm going to get quick results. They tell you that you basically get the results the next day. I'm going to be able to track all of this trending lab, numbers for myself over time. And I'm going to see everything in this pretty little clean dashboard. And I'm going to get this really super low monthly price. But from a provider standpoint, I was immediately like, whoa, hold on, pump the brakes, come again? Immediately I had like 10 questions, 20 questions, because all the consumer is seeing is convenience, a clean app, a low headline price, and they're feeling like I'm going to take control of my health and they're feeling empowered. But the fine print matters, and consumers don't know how to read the fine print, and they don't know how to understand what the difference between some of these mass marketed companies are doing compared to what real healthcare is doing. So this is kind of the bigger overarching theme that I'm talking about, is this marketing shift. And to be clear, I'm not saying that these at-home lab testing companies don't have a place in the future of healthcare. I'm not saying that innovation is bad, or again, what they're trying to bring to the market is necessarily bad. And I'm not saying that patients shouldn't have access to their own health data whenever they want it. But what I am saying is that access to this data is not the same thing as medical care. What I feel like this data that's being provided is almost more like cool little metrics that like your Oura Ring can provide. It's not the same thing as a clinical lab draw. And just because it's this super low advertised price doesn't mean that that actually makes it a better value. So what we actually have to do is we have to break this down on what you're actually getting provided so that you understand the difference, and then you can decide if this is the right thing for you. So there's 6 main issues that I came up with these at-home blood draw companies. And these are the things that I want patients to really understand about this before investing in this. So the first one is that these at-home lab draws are doing what's called a capillary blood draw. And this is not the same thing as doing a venous blood draw, or where like when you go in for one and you get a little needle stuck into your vein and we draw the blood out that way. So just because this is a capillary blood draw does not automatically mean that this test is useless. Capillary blood draws can absolutely be helpful, and they can be used for certain tests when the method is validated. But it's not automatically the same thing as what you can get from a venous blood draw from your arm. And not all tests that we usually run are going to be accurate from a capillary blood draw. So these can be affected by the collection technique, so how you, the consumer at home, are doing it, how the blood is flowing out of it into the collection tube. It can be majorly affected by your skin temperature, by clotting factors, by if it's clotting in the collection container, if you're packaging it up correctly, shipping time. A lot of these are you need to ship across country. And so is it having heat exposure out in the summer months? And did you, the consumer, follow the instructions properly? All of this matters because lab accuracy doesn't just start when the lab sample gets to the lab and they start to process it. It really starts when the sample is collected. And even lab draws that we do at the office, they can be polluted very, very easily. So when a company says that they can test all of these different biomarkers from one capillary blood draw from home, my first question is, what exact tests are they running? And are those tests scientifically as accurate when done from a capillary blood draw versus a venous blood draw? And even if they can be done by a capillary blood draw, is each individual test that they're running under this validated for accuracy and clinical equivalency, or is just the product and the blood draw technique as a whole validated? Those things are very, very important. The next two issues that I initially had and the questions that popped up, when I researched it further, it wasn't necessarily as bad as I initially thought. And this is exactly why I wanted to look into this and do research. So the first of those is that the sample size or the actual amount of blood that you're collecting is super, super tiny. So when we do blood draws at the office, or when you go into Quest or LabCorp or a place like that, if you're running the amount of markers that this lab test is running, typically you're going to be drawing at least one tube that is a lavender top, and you're going to be drawing at least two tubes that are what we call an SST tube. There's also blue top tubes, there's green top tubes. There's a ton of tubes out there depending on what tests you're running. So we're often filling multiple tubes. So obviously initially I was like, well, how are they physically running all these tests from this one teeny tiny vial? And technically, when I researched it, it can be done. However, modern lab technology, although they can run a very small amount of blood, especially if it's a fixed panel and it's not going to be different for every patient, but it may not always be the safest route to take because lab errors can happen. The lab may come back as an error, so you need to have more blood to rerun the test. You may need to do a reflex study, which is where, depending on certain studies you run, if certain results come up, you now need to test more blood further for further tested numbers. It may be that you need to do some add-on tests depending on some of these results. And when you're dealing with a tiny, tiny sample, you don't always have the flexibility to do that. Now, depending on what you're running and what you're wanting to look at, this isn't always necessary. So again, this isn't a bad thing, but it just makes it that you don't have as much insurance or protection in case there is any type of lab error or damage in like the shipping or the collection process. And then the next issue was also the same, where upon further research, it wasn't as bad as I initially thought. But kind of as I mentioned earlier, when we draw blood at the office, or when you again go into Quest or LabCorp, we're drawing different types of tubes. And this is because different tests require different parts of the blood to measure. So for instance, when we're running certain labs, we're using a lavender top tube, which is basically whole blood. You need whole blood to run that value. Whereas other values or other tests, you need something called like an SST tube that is going to have anticoagulant in it. You're going to centrifuge it to separate out all of the red blood cells and a lot of the other blood parts, and you're going to just be left with plasma. And so you're going to measure these markers from plasma. So again, I'm thinking to myself, if you are taking this tiny, tiny little sample of blood in one container and you're sending that in, how are they now distributing that into 2 to 3 different types of tubes to properly test all of the labs that they're trying to run? And I looked, and the labs that they're running, they are going to need plasma and they are going to need whole blood. So when I researched it further, it is possible, again, with a smaller sample size lab that is equipped to deal with this, they can resuspend the blood once they get it in the mail. They can extract a portion of it to centrifuge down to extract the plasma and leave the remaining part of it as whole blood. But again, my question is, if we're already dealing with such a tiny amount of blood and now we're trying to split it up into 2 to 3 different types of blood to measure, even more so, we are decreasing the amount of blood we have available for in case anything goes wrong during the lab process. So it just makes me nervous that, what's their protocol if this sample is damaged? Do you get another free lab sent? Do you just miss out that month? Like, what happens? So those first couple aren't really anything that really is totally horrible, but it is still something that I would be cautious of. The fourth of the 6 questions that I had about this is the hormone testing part of it. And this is probably my biggest concern. So when you are looking at things like hormones on a lab test, estrogen, progesterone, total and free testosterone, SHBG, it's not like measuring cholesterol or measuring a CBC. Hormone testing not only depends on the methodology you're using to measure it, but it also heavily depends on other factors like the timing of the draw. If you're a woman, the day of your cycle that you're on, your ovulation status, It depends on medications. So if you're already on hormones, when you do this lab draw in comparison to when you're taking your hormones can affect the results. Birth control, your thyroid status, all of this can change your results significantly. So let's break down the first part of it. So whenever I am measuring any type of hormone, I want to use an LCMS method. And I talked about this in the podcast where we went over the 5 common labs that your general practitioner is likely missing. So I'm not going to extend on that too much. You can go back and listen to that if you want more details. But basically, this is a methodology to measure hormones via a blood draw as compared to just doing a basic immunoassay. And especially when you're looking at low concentrations of hormones, so like, for example, testosterone in females, where we have a very, very small level of it compared to a man, it can be closer and closer to a weak result. And if you don't have a proper LCMS measurement of this, you can get very skewed results. So I want to give you guys an example of estrogen accuracy. There was a study done, and the sample had a target estradiol value of 28.4 pg per ml. And the reported results ranged between 19 and 138. So we are going for a value of 28.4, and they were getting results as low as 19 and as high as 138, depending on the lab method they were using. And that is not a small difference when we're looking at something like estrogen. So someone who gets one of these results may think, oh my gosh, my estrogen is super low, I need to supplement, when really they may be completely normal and don't need hormone at all. Let's look at another study. So there was another study that compared using the LCMS methodology to a routine immunoassay. And they found that at lower hormone concentrations, the mean difference between the two was about 13.5% for estrogen, 10.1% for testosterone, and 45% for progesterone. And again, when we are measuring something like hormones, we are looking for very delicate accuracy so that we know how to titrate your doses of hormones. And so even something like a 13.5% difference is a huge discrepancy. And so when you are looking at these at-home tests where they're able to do turnaround in one day, we know that they're using an immunoassay. And so your hormone results on this, I would not trust at all. So the other thing with an LCMS test, as I mentioned, is they take much longer to result, usually up to a week, compared to immunoassay, which can happen overnight. So these companies that say, oh yeah, you get your results next day, again, that sounds really enticing to the consumer. But if you dig deeper, you can see that that's actually not always a better option, because if you want true accuracy to know how to take care of your health, you may need to wait for those results. And also, if you are measuring your blood at the wrong time of when you've taken your medications or when you're at in your cycle, as I said, sometimes those numbers can also be completely useless. And you as a consumer are not going to know all of those intricacies. And so this is why it's also important that you have somebody giving you thorough directions and monitoring this. So my fifth question and issue that I have with this model is the monthly testing model. And this is where their marketing gets really, 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 really smart. Monthly testing sounds great. It sounds very proactive. It makes you feel like you're going to stay ahead of your health, but most patients do not need a full-on 25 biomarker panel every 30 days. There are some things on there that can change quickly with supplementation or treatment, like your triglycerides, your inflammation markers, glucose-related markers, or even liver enzymes. But many of the other markers on there do not need monthly tracking. And honestly, tracking them every month can just overwhelm you and provide you with too much data and just confuse you more. And this is where cost comparison comes in. And as I said, their marketing becomes really smart, because you as a consumer, all you hear is $63 lab panel. And you're like, wow, that's so affordable compared to the $200 to $300 that, my provider is trying to charge me. But that's not the real comparison. They want you to look at that number and be wowed and be swayed to their program. But if you really break this down, my lab panels that I run are only necessary at most every 3 to 4 months, unless we're having to like remeasure a testosterone level or something because we've changed up your dose. But most of this is only like very early on in our treatment. But for the most part, I'm only running labs about every 3 months. And once you are kind of what I call on autopilot, I'm really only running them every 6 months to a year. And so if you compare my $200 to $300 lab panel every 3 months, let's say, to a $63 first month plus $79 per month thereafter, over a 3 month period, you've now spent $237 with this at home blood draw company. And this doesn't include any shipping, it doesn't include any other add ons, any follow up, anything else. So, what you don't see initially is that if you actually break it down, this comes out to be almost the exact same price as what your provider may be charging. And then if you take it one step further, especially when you look at what I provide to my patients, is that you're also for that price not just getting a lab draw that you have to do at home that is likely not as accurate or as comprehensive as what we can do in the clinic, but you also are just getting some little PDF printout and maybe some AI interpretation of what those labs showed. There is no person like myself who is taking into account your individual lifestyle, your individual other medical history, the medications that you're on, nuances that may determine what supplements may or may not work better for you. And when we do these repeat draws, once we have started treatment, again, how to change up and increase or decrease dosing as needed depending on these results. So when you really take all of that into account, really the value of what you're getting in clinic with an actual provider is way better and more valuable than what this program is actually offering you. And in the long run, over a 12-month period, you're going to be spending a lot more than you would be spending in clinic. So for example, if I take their $79 a month times 11 months, plus I add in their $63 initial month, that comes out to $932. If I take my $300 intro labs plus 2 additional repeat lab draws throughout the year, that's only $700. So you are saving over $200. This is my main problem with this because patients don't see that. They don't think to ask, why do I need to test every month? If I really add up the cost of this for every month compared to what I might actually need, I'm actually kind of being scammed here a little bit. So the sixth issue that I have with this is interpretation. And this is another thing that patients just may not think about. And even if this company is providing some visit to go over it, it really, in my mind, because I have seen companies like this before, it's usually either an AI bot that's spitting out an interpretation and giving you generalized guidelines of, oh, your vitamin B12 is low. Here's a recommended supplement. But they're not taking into account your medical history or anything else that's going on. And you're not usually talking to a real human. So when you get these lab results, they're only as useful if someone knows what to do with them. So just getting them on a printout, just getting them on some pretty little app dashboard is not going to help you understand your symptoms, the medications or supplements you should be taking, how this factors into your monthly cycle, your health history, your risk factors, your genetic risk factors, your goals on how heavily you're wanting to attack these numbers, and an overall treatment plan. So if something comes back abnormal, what happens next? What are you supposed to do with that? Are you being evaluated by somebody as a whole person? Are you just being shown like a red flag on the app saying that this is abnormal and told that like, hey, maybe this supplement can help this? Are you just getting an overall generalized AI wellness output? What are you really getting with this? Because data without context can easily be skewed and it can easily give you more anxiety than you even started with. And this is where a lot of these companies are successful, is because they make themselves profitable off of your anxiety. Making you believe that you need to run these labs every month is already providing you with anxiety. And I'm telling you right now, you don't need to do these tests every month. So this is why I'm very cautious with these types of tests. Not because patients shouldn't have access to their data or anything like that. They absolutely should. And when you do lab draws at my clinic, your lab results are made public to you on your patient portal, and you can access them at any time, and you can take them to any other provider you may wish. But access to your data is not the same thing as getting quality medical care in relation to that data. So these are my main issues with a product like this. And all of that actually ties into the bigger point that I want to make in this episode about how marketing makes a product feel complete. But when you actually dig deeper, you can start to see how much may actually be missing. So just as we went over in the example with this at-home lab testing company, I think where these pop-up wellness companies have gotten really good and really successful with their marketing is how they're being kind of manipulative with their pricing. They are basically getting patients to compare this pretty little headline price to other prices in the industry without actually comparing what's actually included in that price. And to me, that, like I said, is very manipulative. So a company may advertise a really low monthly lab price, and you're going to immediately compare that to a price that you would get with your provider. And you're going to initially think, wow, that seems really, really great and so much cheaper. So why would I not do this instead? And we see this tactic happening elsewhere in wellness as well. We're seeing it especially in the weight loss industry. So someone sees an online company offering 4 shots of semaglutide for $300. And then you're comparing that to a weight loss program through a medical clinic that maybe is charging $300, $400 a month. And although those prices seem very similar, again, it's not automatically the same product. In the one, you're getting a standardized, often overdosed dose of semaglutide that's usually a research grade product, pre-drawn up in a syringe that who knows how long it's been sitting there, that you're now being injected with, and you're being run through the clinic like herding cows. And most of the time, you're not actually receiving any medical guidance, any dosing guidance, or any help if you are to start to experience symptoms. And this is if they're even like offering you the syringes to begin with. Other forms of this are just, here, I'll give you this whole vial of medication for like $300. So again, you're not comparing that to something like what we offer in our clinic where it's $300 a month, but you are getting all of the medication that you need. You are getting all of the lab draws that you will need throughout the year. You're getting a perfect amino supplement that is going to help with your protein intake in order for you to keep your muscle mass going. You're getting all of your in-body scans and interpretation to make sure you're not just losing weight, but that you're losing fat and maintaining muscle, and overall getting better results because you have a provider who is personally managing your specific case. So once again, all you're seeing is this pretty little price tag, but you're kind of not being truly told the shortcomings of those programs. So this is the fine print that you don't necessarily see in these pretty little ads. Their marketing gets you to compare their cheapest version of a product to a full service version of real medical care, and then makes their option look like the obvious better choice and obvious better deal. But remember, cheaper is not always better. Cheaper is usually cheaper, and it's usually stripped down. So this is my main thing that I really want the consumer to understand, is that the price only matters after you actually understand what is all included in that price. So you can't just compare price to price. You really need to look at what each program includes and what the shortcomings of each program is and what the benefits of each program is. Now, let's talk about celebrity and influencer endorsements, because this is another area where wellness marketing has become incredibly smart and powerful. When you see a celebrity, an athlete, an influencer, a biohacker that is promoting a certain product, that product immediately feels more trustworthy to you. It feels like, well, if this person is using this to stay healthy and fit and youthful, then maybe that's what I should be doing too. And if they're going to stand behind it, then it must be good, right? I'm seeing it pop up everywhere on my social media and my TikTok. So this must be the next best thing. And I become so frustrated that we are so quick to take health advice from somebody who has no medical education whatsoever, and then being extra skeptical of providers who have actually dedicated their careers and their life to education and becoming the best that they can be in this area. And people will say, well, a healthcare provider is just trying to make money off of me. And I get it. Like, skepticism is healthy. Patients should ask questions. You should understand what you're paying for, and your provider should be being transparent. But what the heck do you think a celebrity is doing? Do you think they're promoting this product out of pure generosity and pure heartedness? Do you really think that they're posting about these biomarkers and supplements and weight loss things because they care so deeply about your health? Or are they just concerned about their paycheck at the end of the day, or being the face of something to enhance their brand? You need to remember that these celebrities and these influencers are being paid to review these things and promote them on their channel. This is exactly why they are an influencer. They have made a career out of quitting their full-time job to make money on social media. And the way that they do that is by promoting products that they get paid to promote. So you have no idea if they are actually using this product first and foremost, or if they're just getting paid to say it. And number two, even if they are using it, again, they're being provided an incentive to use it, and they are not educated in the medical field enough to know if this is actually a good product or not. So I really don't get why a provider recommends an appropriate test and they get accused of trying to profit. But then a celebrity posts a paid partnership and suddenly everyone's treating it like it's trusted health advice. And I think it's also funny that I see all of these influencers who are bashing hormone therapy and bashing supplements and all of this stuff because, oh, it's just big pharma trying to profit off of you. But then, oh, don't forget to visit the link in my bio to buy my detox program that's 14 days and makes you look amazing like me. Like, hello, how do you not see that they are trashing one clearly scientific medical thing in order to manipulate you and sell you on their black market product that they're trying to sell and make money off of? Like, it just boggles my mind. But they use their celebrityness and their likability to appease to the general public. So you have to remember that that's not science. Like, these people who talk about how menopause is not real and hormone therapy is not real, like, this is literally studied in scientific literature. Like, this is in anatomical textbooks. Like, where do they have the right to come off and just spew their opinion on that with no scientific backing whatsoever, but then say, oh, but go buy my product because that will help you instead? So I really want patients to understand that just because your favorite celebrity or your favorite influencer or your favorite person on TikTok is saying that they use this product or they use this test doesn't mean that that makes it a good test. And it doesn't mean that they actually are using that on themselves. When you specifically look at a celebrity, let's take Kim K. Do you think she's really using this at-home blood draw for $63 a month and sending it in and getting results every 30 days? No, she's probably getting concierge medical providers that come to her house, do full venous blood draws with multiple tubes, multiple specialty tests. She probably gets imaging done. She's got all the lifestyle help she needs, private chefs, private personal trainers. She probably is getting IVs done at her house, access to all of the top supplement brands on the market, hormone specialists, and someone that is interpreting all of this specifically for her in real time. She's not using a $63 a month subscription box. I can tell you that right now. So to me, anytime I see a celebrity or an influencer talking about a product, my alert signals go up immediately because sure, they may look beautiful and they may look healthy, but I always have to remind myself that they have access to unlimited funds and healthcare avenues that I know that that is not actually how they're getting their results. And I never trust anything that somebody is being paid to talk about. So I want to move on to another trend I first started seeing in the aesthetic industry, and now definitely we're seeing it in the wellness industry. A lot of the aesthetic conferences that I've been going to over the last year and a half are having special lecture tracks that specifically talk about how to start a med spa and how to grow it and run it in a way to make it appealing to corporations that will then come in and purchase it from you for a high price. And then they will continue to run the practice under a corporate model. And the problem that I had with this is, number one, I got into aesthetics because I love what I do. I'm passionate about what I do. I love injecting and I love the transformations that I can make for my patients and the joy that I can bring to their life and making them feel like themselves again. And this is why I do what I do. And this is why I plan to do what I do until I physically can't do it anymore. I'm not doing this because I see dollar signs and I'm trying to create this multi-million-dollar company that then I can sell off to a corporation. Because also what we as advanced providers who are passionate about this industry try to teach is that when you are being treated by a med spa owned by a corporation or a lay person, that's exactly what you're getting. You're getting a place that wants your money. They want the profits off of you. They want to shove product on you. They want to recommend things that aren't always necessary because they see dollar signs. And so the more and more people that are entering the aesthetic industry and growing these businesses for the sole purpose to sell it off to a major corporation, we're only bringing more and more med spas into the world that are operated under that model that is continuing to provide bad results, bad services, and bad recommendations to our patients, which only further dilutes our industry and gives our industry a bad rap, which overall makes our industry plummet and makes the consumer scared to take advantage of the wonderful things that we can do in aesthetics. And I'm definitely seeing this trend carry over into wellness now, except for that corporations are just starting it from the get-go. People with no medical background and no insight on hormone therapy, weight loss therapy, peptide therapy, or any of that are just opening these corporate style clinics to herd patients through and collect bushels and bushels of cash. And patients are drawn to it. It's convenient. It's accessible. Those places are cutting corners. They're not doing full medical intakes. They're not doing all the things that you should be doing because they don't know all the medical nuances and the problems that can happen with some of these treatments. And so you as the consumer just see it as, well, this is a lot more easier than going into Heather's clinic and having to fill out 5 pages of paperwork before she even sees me. But again, these are medical procedures. Is this healthcare or is this a business model? And a lot of these companies that are being built like startups, they are, as I said, they're designed to scale. They're designed to acquire customers. They're designed to lower overhead, to increase conversion, create recurring revenue, to become attractive to even more investors down the road, to private equity firms, larger corporations. And I want to be fair with this, that building a profitable business is not wrong. As any medical practice, you have to be profitable to survive in order to provide more to your patients. And providers definitely deserve to be paid for their education and their time, the medical risk that they take, and their expertise. But there's a major difference between building a sustainable practice because you want to take care of people and building a health company primarily as an asset to scale and sell. Those are very different reasons to be doing it. And these startup companies or these more corporate models are backed by investors and corporate companies that have huge amounts of cash. And so they are able to do this mass level marketing to the community. And this is why those are the types of ads that we see pop up. When you take a provider-run clinic, we do not have the cash flow or equity to be doing these mass level marketing ads. Those cost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And so we're not being seen as much as these kind of, in my opinion, lower level non-medical offices. And so this, again, is attracting patients to that because they don't know any better. And then overall, it is polluting the industry. Patients are getting bad results. Semaglutide and GLP-1s are getting a bad rap because people are doing it wrong. They're not following it properly. They're getting sicker than a dog. They're getting skinny fat, they're wasting muscle, and more people are being turned off by the amazing health benefits that GLP-1s can offer. And that's just one example. So this is really what's worrying me about the direction in general of wellness and aesthetics as a whole. The more that this gets absorbed into these large corporate models with huge marketing budgets, the more we risk losing the things that make medicine safe, that give you individualized care and clinical judgment and provider accountability and provider time. So you have to remember that a beautiful brand does not make something clinically robust. A easy, clean, beautiful app does not make something medically appropriate. A celebrity or an influencer endorsement does not make something evidence-based or that it will actually work. And an AI output dashboard does not replace a provider with years and years of medical training. These types of things just make a product marketable. And I feel like in today's world with AI, marketing has become the winner of all things. So just be really careful the next time you're sucked in by really pretty marketing. To wrap all this up, are these at-home blood draw companies automatically a scam? No, it's not what I'm saying at all. This may actually have a place in our industry. It may be really useful for basic lab trend tracking. It may be helpful to get some people more engaged with their health or to be used, as a stepping stone into further care for their health. But where my problem with it is that patients need to understand what it is and what it can provide to you and what it is not, and not just be manipulated by a fancy price tag without really understanding how this differs from true medical care. Wellness marketing is getting really good at making partial care look like complete care. And it's getting really good at influencing the market as a whole. And honestly, it's starting to scare me and really make me fear for where healthcare in general is headed and the health of our community as a whole. So the next time, as I said, you see one of these wellness ads or a friend at the gym offers you this really appealing sounding price for your semaglutide or for your peptide, really just ask yourself, is this really cheaper? What's included with it? What's missing with it? Who's going to be interpreting this? Who's going to be helping me if I have a side effect or it's not working or something goes wrong? Am I really getting the best product for my healthcare goals, or am I just getting a standardized treatment based off of what everybody else is doing? Cheap does not always mean a better value. Convenient does not always mean that it's clinically better. And influence is not the same as expertise. So I hope that this provided a little bit of clarity to you and really kind of made you think a little bit about some of these things that you're seeing on social media or that you're seeing at the gym or that you're seeing from your friend's neighbor. And it really gets you thinking about what really you're being offered. And I'm sorry that this one was a little bit of a long one, but I really had a lot to say because I'm really passionate about this. And I'm really passionate about caring for my patients and making them look and feel their best on the outside and the inside. So I thank you so much for sticking with me through today. And as always, I hope to see you on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in on the Retreat Radio. We'll see you next week. The information shared on this podcast is for educational purposes only. It reflects clinical experience and opinion and is not intended to serve as a diagnosis, treatment plan, or medical advice. As always, please consult with a qualified healthcare provider before making any changes to your health, medications, or treatment plan. If you want to be a part of our community, make sure to follow us on Instagram at theretreat.wellness and theretreat.aesthetics. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with me today, and until next time.